Hello, here's some more deception of a generation.
Half men, half beasts, or hybrids. These are half men, half lions, and they do things like communicate with the dead and have.
Just making sure that. Yeah.
So let's go and look at the Thundercats right now, who we saw are taken from heathen gods of the past, ancient heathen gods. Here's Thundercats.
Thundercats!
Thundercats are on. Thundercats are loose. Here's the door. Thundercats are loose.
Thundercats. I don't know what this is meant to prove as a thing, but okay. I mean, I'm just running a risk of getting fucking copyright claimed, but sure. Oh, there's a ghost. That means they're gonna be angry. Me too, bro. Me too. I thought Gary and Phil had the sword then.
You know, as we've been observing here, there were gymnastics and martial arts type.
Fucking gymnastics? Shit, the tool of Satan.
Of thrusting and jumping here with the Thundercats, and again.
Wait, you can't jump? I get thrusting because it could be sexual, but you can't jump? Okay then, so I seem to have had a bizarre problem with my hard drive. It's got full. So, yeah, I've had to swap hard drives, which means some stuff's gone unrecorded, but I'm not going to redo it. We've got enough shit to get through, so I apologise if, I've missed a bit, but whatever.
Called the Eye of Thundera. It's a red eye, and when placed to the forehead, it enables you to see into the future, to tell if there's danger around. Now, this third eye is directly from the third eye Hinduism, and when you travel through India, you notice that third eye is almost always red. Absolutely, and so we're seeing again an occult practice, and the children begin to.
It's not occultic, you dickbag, but okay.
To pick up the idea that this third eye is part of everyday life, and that they should look for things in their own lifestyles that would identify with Hinduism, the occult, and mystical Eastern religion, creating a desire for the occult again.
In what fucking capacity? Like, I like watching. If that's the case, right, why didn't all those kids that watch Rick and Morty become brilliant scientists? Why didn't people who watch Doctor Who become brilliant scientists? I watched Doctor Who as a kid and I fucking loved this show, but I'm fucking thick as pig shit when it comes to science. So how the fuck do you explain that, Gary and Phil?
Absolutely astounding. And we noticed that Lionel spoke with his dead father, as we're going to see in the next clip. I'd like to play another video segment from the Thundercats, who are half man and half beast that we saw earlier. We saw the martial arts segment, but let's show how occultic they really can become as we look at how they get into even talking with the dead. Here's Thundercats again.
I knew those miserable Thundercats would never be able to resist an SOS from outer space. But all they're heading for is a rendezvous with extinction. And I will be rid of the Sword of Omens forever!
Okay.
Jaga! The eye of Thundera is with you, Lion-O. The source of the Thundercat's power. But I cannot summon it, Jaga. Shiner has sealed the eye. It sleeps, Jaga, and I cannot awaken it. Your young friend talks to himself. Jaga! Sealed or not, the eye sleeps only until needed. No, don't leave us, Jaga. The eye sleeps only until needed. Thunder! 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 Thundercats!
So, what does he think? Oh yeah, they do have a thing about Star Wars later. But like, The Lion King and several other things do this. I think Bambi does this, and it's like, what do you think? Like, do you think all of them are trying to brainwash your kids into becoming Satan worshippers, or do you just think it's part of the story? I mean, come on. Butchin.
You did it!
Why did every 80s cartoon have to have like a really annoying fluffy character?
Omens
Oh god, this thing's like a fucking epilepsy nightmare.
into my hand.
Could have given us a warning on that one, fucking Gary and Phil. Oh yeah, epilepsy's a demonic possession, it's not real. Hey, you're gonna pay for that wall, bozo.
Fantastic!
Okay, Panthro, let's go. Ho!
Oh.
Well, if you're seeing what I'm seeing, we're seeing this sort of omens that this Lion-O is using here. And again, it's absolutely...
I like how Gary Greenwald and Phil Phillips are like names you'd give if you were not, like, if you were on the spot caught by the police and you didn't want them tracing your name back to you, you'd give a fake name like Gary Greenwald or fucking Phil Phillips.
the occultic, even to something that was taken like out of Star Wars. It looks like he's talking to like Obi-Wan Kenobi, little Luke Skywalker talked to him. Here we find Lion-O talking to his dead father, Jaga. Is that his name? Yeah. Jaga. Phil, what is this called when they talk to the dead?
Christianity. That's the one joke I've stolen, but it's my favourite one.
Called necromology, and it's dealt with in Deuteronomy.
Necromology? I've never heard of that specific term before, but I'll take your word for it. Living Kendall.
But this is something we're not even supposed to have in our home. It's an abomination to God for us to speak to spirits of the dead or dead relatives, which are really only demons masquerading as dead ones. Right. And then he summons forth...
Why doesn't he give us a channel of communication with the dead? Why is your God such an asshole?
his sword, and he summons it forth and it levitates to his hand. I couldn't believe some of the absolutely bizarre creatures there. The one was called Mumra, is that correct? Yeah. Now, we have a culty toy here that we bought in the store, which...
They've given a lot of money to these occultic things. Like, if this was actually true, like, could you imagine these Satan worshippers who fucking make He-Man and Thundercats waking up to one morning, right, and they have enough money to build 6 virgin sacrifice chambers now because these two twats have emptied their bank accounts into theirs to buy toys.
Well, it is part of Mumra. Mumra changes from a mummy that you saw on the screen to this figure right here. And Ra, again, is the sun god Ra. And this is called the ever-living evil one. The ever-living evil one. Yeah. It's interesting, if I push the back of this doll...
Now, is that not a clue? Is that not a clue as to the conclusion that a sensible person would draw? This character is referred to as the evil one, but they are criticizing what he does.
The arms begin to move, and if you put a battery in the back, the eyes will light up, and it's a very well-made depiction of what's on the cartoon, and the children must play with this all the time.
You'll notice the intertwined serpents on his front and the cobras again.
This just kind of reminds me of how good toys were in the 80s and how they're all... I haven't seen toys in recent years, but like I remember there was a time where people got a bit lazy with their toys depending on the toy maker and the franchise.
The cobra, again, being the symbol of demonic power and protection.
Totally amazing. I am totally wiped out by what we're seeing here. So when we...
I like how children's cartoons are just too much for these guys. It's too much for them to comprehend.
The sort of omens and all of these things, again, the children are taught to identify with things that are occultic. Is that correct?
Right.
No, they're told to see them as the villains. You fucking idiot.
So Phil, what would you say the scripture would be for us to share with the people who are watching today?
Well, I think
You're the fucking idiot axeman that accidentally murders his mate because he's not paying attention to what he's doing and the fucking axe flies off the handle and smacks into his guy's back, and then he has to run from city to city hiding from his vengeful evil brother who wants to murder him. That has nothing to do with this, but you are that level of stupid.
probably the greatest scripture that we can share right now is 2 Corinthians 11, verse 3. It talks about Eve being deceived by the serpent's cunning or trickery or plans. And she was deceived in her mind. She was not deceived in her flesh or her spirit, in her mind.
Yes, that's how deception works.
And when she was deceived in her mind by the serpent's plans, she was led astray from a pure and sincere devotion to Christ or God.
Christ wasn't born at that point, you fucking idiot. How do I know more about your religion than you? Is that just a cover to hide the fact that you don't have a brain?
Now, our children don't have to wind up in the backyard sacrificing chickens to a moon god to be affected by the occult within the toys and cartoons.
And you
Yeah, but that's the fun way to do it. That's how I used to do it when I was a kid.
say some have even yelled out in parking lots, He-Man is more powerful than Jesus Christ.
Right.
I mean, he said that, but like, source? Would a kid ever say that? Because I don't think a kid would even say that if you asked them to, if you gave them a script. If you gave them an incentive, they wouldn't do it.
All that has to happen is for Satan to divert them from a pure and sincere relationship to God, and he's won.
Yes.
He doesn't have...
But surely that wouldn't be an issue because your churches are so good at keeping us on the straight and narrow, they wouldn't be tempted to stray from them, right? Or do your churches just bore the kids and they want to go back home and watch their cartoons? Because I think that's the more likelihood. That's the more likely scenario here.
have to get them totally involved in the occult, although that can happen, and this creates a desire and a taste for it.
Well, let's tie this up today. I know some of you parents that are watching are already saying, I can't believe it. I let my children watch this on Saturday morning and on the...
I'm saying I can't believe it because this is the dumbest fucking shit I've sat through in a while. This is dumber than Kim Walker's shit. I said it. It is. Like, I'll give Kim Walker one thing over these two. She actually spells out the way that the fucking logic flows, and she has some form of sourcing, even if it's crap. These two just say statistics that mean nothing to nobody, and don't bother, like, sourcing them or anything. And their fucking ideals just don't make any sense to anyone at all. Even them.
weekdays, and they're totally involved with these characters. They act like them. I tell you what, you have a responsibility as a parent to stop the children from having these toys, from watching these cartoons, and
I hope you refund their allowance if you do that.
we'll share later how you're responsible for that child. In the name of Jesus, I break every stronghold, and I command that Satan loses hold upon your household, and I praise God for it. Amen. See you.
That sounds rational and reasonable. Unfortunately, Satan has no hold on my household because, well, I'm in it, and, well, he wouldn't want to fuck with that shit.
Next time.
So that's the end of the first episode, I think. And there's more. I mean, there's like an hour and 3/4. What the oh, it's an eagle. It looked like some weird thing from Vampire Night.
Well, I'm Gary Greenwald, and today
Hey, you got a different suit.
we're back with Phil Phillips, my special guest from Texas. Phil's a young man who's done
He hasn't.
an expose on occultic cartoons and toys that have come into our stores. Also, he's dealt with a lot of the comic books that are actually programming our children for witchcraft and the occult. And I have
Is that why all 80s comics were written in binary? I always wondered that. Thanks, guys.
Phil earlier how we got into this area, and he said that way back in the days of Ken and Barbie dolls, when there was a humanism coming into all of the different toys that were made, we began to move this direction. And I thought maybe we would start out today by looking at Ken and Barbie. I mean,
Oh, no, not humanism. God, people being fucking compassionate and caring about what other people feel and think. No.
who would think anything could be wrong with Ken and Barbie? But let's look at it from that aspect. Ken or Phil, what is it about Ken and Barbie here?
Well,
See, he can't tell the difference between fucking Ken and Phil Phillips.
obviously, looking at the two, they're perfect American dream type people.
Sorry, but if I look like that, I'd probably put my head in the microwave and melt myself. I can't tell who looks more fucked up, him with his cross eye, or her with a fucking wall-eyed whatever. Like, Jesus Christ.
You know, Barbie is absolutely perfect. Perfect body, perfect hair, perfect clothes, perfect car, perfect house. And she has a perfect boyfriend who's also the absolute image, you know, that she has the clothes, the house, the car, everything material about them. It just flows right along.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. James Dobson puts it this way: Barbie has
Oh, James Dobson's the guy who said that you can make your kid not gay by showing him your cock in the shower. I'm not taking him out of context. That's literally something he said. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. Yeah, I might want to make some notes about that for anyone who needs parenting classes.
absolutely no blemishes except for Made in Hong Kong stamped on her rear end.
Right.
What, you consider that a blemish, you fucking fascist?
But there's someone who's a
Also, you've been looking, you freak.
little more emotionally involved with Ken and Barbie than either me or Dr. James Dobson, and that would be Bill Barton. Now, most people don't know who Bill Barton is, but Bill Barton was the co-designer of Barbie. In a recent interview with Newsweek magazine, he contributed the current outbreak of anorexia nervosa, the self-imposed starvation syndrome, to the popularity of Barbie in the late 50s and early 60s.
Oh, but it was okay before when you were telling people to fast left, right, and centre.
Is that right?
Yes, and
You mean the children were actually getting involved? Little girls would see Barbie being so perfect, so slender, and their reaction would be, I've got to be like her, so they'd start starving themselves.
yes, this man said that this doll creates unreal beauty expectations in little girls, and he has never given one of these dolls to any of his granddaughters.
It's kind of funny that this is like the only thing that slightly resembles a real point. I mean, there's still flaw in it, but like, you know.
That's how much he believes in this.
Yes.
This is like the one thing I'd be like, okay, I wouldn't even bother arguing with this one because like it's kind of subjective, but I mean it depends on the child and the what have you. But like this is the one fucking minute in the entire 2-hour special where they don't sound like a pair of fucking raving idiots, which makes me feel bad now because they're talking about something they probably shouldn't. They should just go back to being fucking
And
idiots.
she is a perfectly made little girl, and this is where there's a little
She's 30.
danger in the Ken and Barbie dolls.
Well, Barbie's perfectly okay for early adolescent teenager, but that's not who plays with them. It's young little girls, and they should be playing with soft mothering type dolls, learning mothering qualities instead of learning fashion and
What? Why would you... I'm sorry, there's just too many layers of stupid. So there's like a metamorphosis in a little girl's growth where she learns how to be a mother and then a fashion designer. Also, teenage girls don't play with dolls. Not really. Like, honestly, I'd say that's a young child to a 10-year-old maybe at most. And then after that, they're just like typically trying hard to be young women. Everyone's different, but yeah, Phil, I don't. You've clearly not spent much time with girls between the ages of fucking 5 and 16 because you know that otherwise.
Well, of course, happening at that age. We're not going to say that there's anything really wrong with these dolls, except that every doll a child plays with conditions him to vicariously live his life through that doll. And what was that statement you made earlier, that God spoke to you and said what dolls would do?
Oh, thankful we've gone back to Crazy Town. But that's not the problem. I think the problem is that you just associated these two characters with American Dream type perfection. And I think that was part of the problem. That's what perfection looks like, but really not everyone looks like that. And the people who do look like that aren't necessarily successful or great or anything. They're not anything that is relatable to Barbie and Ken. They could be blonde and thin and pretty, but not have anything to offer like the character of Barbie does, and then they'll feel defective. I don't know. There's plenty of like situations, but like I feel like the idea that these two characters are meant to be perfect without any form of deconstruction to show how they're not perfect does create unrealistic expectations in people. But I mean, I don't know if it's to the extent that people say, but I imagine that it is there. Not to mention either, it might create an unrealistic expectation in future partners if they're looking for a man who's like Ken, but they have this idea of what Ken should be, but Ken might not even fit that personality. But anyway, back to Phil Phillips talking to God in a toy store.
Well, children project themselves with their imagination into toys to give them life, character, abilities, and talents, and they set the surrounding around it. You see, toys are symbols.
Yes.
That guide children through different situations. And these symbols...
Is that why so many kids go missing in the Appalachian waste? Because they just put their little action man on the floor and say, "Guide me, action man," and he just falls over in the mud, and then they just spend the next 50 years crying in a bush because the fucking action man failed them.
Set the stage for their qualitative judgments later on in life.
Well,
that's like the closest thing to what I said. Like the idea that someone could build up expectations of life on their imagination as a child if their horizons are not broad enough. But what these two idiots missed the point of is the fact that stuff like He-Man, Ninja Turtles, and Thundercats, I'm not going to pretend it's deep intellectual shit, but being exposed to characters like that can tell a child that perfection isn't perfection. That someone can be something other than Barbie or Ken and still be worth something. That they could look like a hideous freak like the Ninja Turtles, but still be heroic and valuable. It's like the nerdy one doesn't have to be the one that sits everything out and that kind of shit. It teaches things like that, which unfortunately these two idiots, it just goes completely over their heads because they're idiots.
Let's go from there. We're talking about humanistic type of toys. Let's go into the more blatantly occultic things.
Yeah.
I remember a couple years ago I preached a message for television called Dungeons and Dragons. And in it I dealt with the occultic overtones, the witchcraft, the demonism, the spells that were perpetrated through the game Dungeons and Dragons. And I felt at the time that children were identifying so closely with those little pieces in the game that we even had newspaper clippings of children that had dropped out. Some they thought had even committed suicide because of the game, and even more has come to light since then.
I mean, some people do take things way too seriously, you know, like how a lot of people commit suicide because of religion and shit. But, like, whatever you look at, someone's going to take it so seriously that they'll take their own life over it. Like, any fucking thing, whether it's art, writing, gardening even, something like chess even can cause somebody to go there. It's not Dungeons and Dragons specifically. I could understand how Dungeons and Dragons could grab somebody like that, because when you create a character, you do put a lot of effort into coming up with the concept, building up the character, and you can play a character for months or even years, and then they die and you could be left with nothing and have to start again. It's why I try not to get too attached to a single character. I have characters on the back burner ready to take over should my main character die, but it is a bit of a gut punch if a character you really enjoy playing as, or really just alike as a character, dies, especially if it's like in a way that's not exactly to plan. It just sort of happens in the middle of the fight, because that's part of the appeal, but it's also part of the drawback of Dungeons and Dragons. It's like playing an RPG like Fallout 3, and you make your character, and then you play the second dungeon and you started building him up and getting used to him and enjoying him and all that shit, and then you die. But unlike in a video game, you can't just reload the save. You have to basically put in another character, and it's like kind of shit, because it's like I've actually spent time and effort putting into with this character, and now I've basically got to start all over again. It's like everything's shit. You just get fucking depressed. But yeah, I have to admit, like, I get why someone would, especially someone who's not emotionally stable, might have that reaction to something like that. But I don't think D&D is specifically the only thing where that can happen. Bible club could cause someone to go down those roads, you know? It's just how it works. But anyway, they're going to talk about how D&D is evil now.
And I wanted to show a clip from Dungeons and Dragons right now showing.
It's kind of funny. They base this on the cartoon, but the cartoon is like, I mean, people like it, I guess, in a way, but like, when most people think of Dungeons and Dragons, they do not think of the fucking cartoon or the movies.
The occultic overtones of the game.
Although that upcoming movie seems like it could be decent.
So here's from the cartoon show that's now come from the game. Here it is, Dungeons and Dragons.
Excellent. Soon the repairs will be completed, and your work will be done now for. Your ship shall make me more powerful than ever. Well, what is it?
The lost children have been spotted in the forest nearby, with dungeon masters, young ones.
Good. Now we can eliminate them all.
No!
What?
If you harm those children, I will work no more.
Is that so?
Your threats mean little to me, Venger.
As you wish. Shadow Demon, see that they are captured and bring them to me.
But
Go, and do not harm them.
Well, Phil, we've been watching a character here called Venger and another black creature called Shadowkeeper. What do they represent to you?
Really unoriginal villains.
I believe that it's a direct depiction of Satan and his demon power.
Yeah, it's almost like they're the villains, so they reflect Satan. I mean, there are like occultic things in Dungeons and Dragons. Like the Warlock class is literally a evil wizard who makes a deal with a demon so that he can have demonic powers, like the Eldritch Blast, and he draws his magical powers from, you know, making a pact with a demon. But it's considered an evil thing to be in Dungeons and Dragons, or at least not a good thing to be. Admittedly, I think you could have a neutral warlock, but I don't know. Or maybe you could have a good warlock if the character like feels like he made a mistake. But regardless, like, it's not considered to be a good thing. It's not like paladins they're making deals with demons. Paladins have a devotion to God, which gives them power, which is something that I would have thought these guys would appreciate, because it's like clerics and paladins are actually empowered by their faith in gods, which I know that they're not the god, but this is a universe where your god doesn't exist. In fact, in theory, you could make a variation of Dungeons and Dragons and base it on like the Bible. A paladin or a cleric could very well just come from God, and a warlock could come from Satan. Like, you could very well do that, and I think you'd probably like that as a thing, because, you know, you'd actually be able to teach kids that faith equals power or something in some weird way, like Pilgrim's Progress.
And demon friends that go forth for him. I believe that Dungeons and Dragons is a direct quote from the pit of hell, if you want to call it that. It is a mind-bending game, a mind-changing game. It is involved with all kinds of occult and pagan religion. The player's handbook includes over 160 pages of spells to be cast.
Let's look at one of the
Yeah, because, you know, spells in Dungeons and Dragons are quite complicated, because you need to know if you can cast the spell, if you've got the ability or the means. Some of them require special items to be sacrificed. Some of them are like only castable if you've got a special kind of like level or item that you wear that gives you that power. So like, there's all kinds of things that come with it, and this was 2nd edition, I think, or maybe 1st edition, so fuck knows what complications come with that. But yeah, there are a lot of spells in Dungeons and Dragons, because different characters can cast different kinds of spells, because obviously the Holy Warrior is not going to cast the same spells as the Demonic Warrior or the Warlock or the Wizard or the Cleric or whatever.
books here. This is the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, the Monster Manual, and it's full of monstrous figures and actually those...
Yeah, they're the monsters that you have to fight in the game. Usually you have to help protect villagers from these monsters or something like that.
Creatures that the children can imagine, and children's imaginations are very active, aren't they?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point. You're supposed to imagine this shit. You're not just supposed to see it as words on a page or figurines on a map. Like, you're supposed to sort of bring a character to life through, everything at your disposal.
Now let's look at another one of these. This is where we go into the Dungeon Master's Guide.
I also don't understand what their problem is with having to fight monsters to protect innocent people. You can also use holy powers to do this, so I don't understand, like...
Who is the Dungeon Master?
Well, the Dungeon Master is a person who plays God in the game. And he controls all the situations. In fact, the books tell him that.
One thing that's kind of funny is that these are really expensive. Like, they're like 30 quid each. So that Gary's holding like $150 worth of fucking books in his hand. So they can go up to like 50 quid.
He is the god of the game.
Well, he's more like the narrator. I guess he's the god of the game, but usually he sets up a story and the characters react to the story. He's more or less telling a story within a setting. He's a god of a game in the sense that a narrator is the god of the story they're telling. In theory, yeah, the narrator can hijack the story and do whatever he wants with it, but in the same way, it's like they wouldn't normally, because they have to tell a story to keep people engaged.
And he controls the situations in the game,
Not entirely, because some of it is down to chance. Like, for example, the Dungeon Master can decide that the Minotaur is going to hit player 1, and then he rolls a dice, and whatever that dice's number is, it reflects on whether or not the narrator was able to hit and harm the player. So if the narrator wants to kill all 4 of the players who are in the game, chance might not allow him. He might have the greatest master plan ever, but can't execute it because all the dice rolls are against him. If anything, he's almost like a fifth player. He's guided by chance. He's stopped by chance. He's restricted by chance. Whereas a god, in theory, would control chance, unless he doesn't.
The players are moving through the dungeons, and then if he doesn't like someone, he can play pretty much against them.
Do you think parents...
Like I said, he can play against them, but every time something happens to a player, they have an opportunity to, well, let chance take the wheel, and, well, if chance harms them or chance spares them, then neither the dungeon master or the player has control over that. So
Parents are aware that when the children play the game, that demon spirits are involved?
I do not think that many parents are aware of what's inside the game. In fact, in my presentation, I show many pictures from the inside of the book just to show the images of this game.
I mean, it's got Pegasus and fucking dragons firing breath all over the fucking place. I mean, it's based on ancient mythologies and shit. Like, they must have some idea. But, like, they must also understand as well that it's fantasy. So, like, why would they give a shit what's actually inside the game so long as the kids don't see it as a how-to guide to live life?
Gruesomeness of this game, and the occult link to it.
Well, I know that when I did my message, and this has happened, I have letter after letter where people took the pieces. Now, there's sixes involved in the pieces of the game, but they take the pieces of the game, they would throw them in the incinerator or the fireplace, and screams would come out because there seemed to be some kind of spiritual forces inhabiting those pieces.
They're made of plastic. You fucking idiot. Like, they're like little plastic army men that you used to get in those tins, in those tubs or whatever. I get mine custom made and sent to me whenever I do a campaign. I always have, like, my character made into a piece, just as a sort of memento thing of the campaign. I had my first one ever sent to me the other week, and he's pretty bitchin'.
And children would drop up.
But yeah, if I threw him into a fire, screaming ghosts won't come out. The only thing screaming would be me, because my figurine that cost me a fair bit of money to have shipped to me and custom made was now melted into a blob of plastic. That would be the bit that made me sad.
They didn't want to study anymore. What are the pieces, for instance?
Well, yeah, because D&D is more fun than studying. It's actually kind of funny, though, because recently a guy in, I think it was Norway, used D&D as a tool for social speech and language therapy, and basically helping autistic and Asperger's children develop social skills, which I found kind of interesting, and I get why, because it does make you come out of your shell. And you do kind of have to speak up and be your character in order to fully flourish. And I think it's quite fun for that. I actually would have loved to have done that at my old job, because I know several kids who would have really benefited from something like that. But the time would just not have been on my side at all. Like, you need 2 hours every week to do that.
How this game affects the most intelligent of our children, and the pieces in.
It's funny because I'm not intelligent and I've played at least 1 campaign and 1 short, so.
White witches, wizards, necromancers, the clerics, that type of thing. It includes evil wizards. It's a white versus black witchcraft. The good versus evil is white versus black witchcraft. And Anton LaVey, the writer of the Satanist Bible, says there is no such thing as white witchcraft.
Yeah, but this is a story. It's fantasy. Like, even if that's true, that, you know, all witchcraft is evil, fine, okay, whatever. I mean, I don't know. It's not real anyway. But even if it's all evil, this is a fantasy story where there are good witches. But, like, the cleric that you described, those guys can fight for, like, peace and honor and justice. Like, there's all different kinds of gods and things. There's a whole pantheon of gods. And you could fight as a cleric for Christian values in the game. Your character can be a hero of Christian value. but you don't really mention that part because that kind of destroys your narrative.
Being a Satan worshiper, he should know.
Yeah, he should know that all power from Satan is going to create evil and havoc. And
Well, does it have to though, or could you just use it for something else? Like if I cast fire from my hands and I use it to basically like cook food, like I get like one of those little cocktail sausages and I cook it and eat it, and that's all I ever use it for. Am I doing evil there? Well, you know, unless you're vegan, then you're probably going to think I'm doing evil there, but I didn't kill the pig, I just eat it.
what it shows is it shows a good versus evil, that good has about the same equality of power as evil, and they come head on.
Well, it's not always good versus evil, because there's also law and chaos. The idea that, I mean, Soul Calibur does that as well, where it starts off as a good versus evil story, but the further into the games you get, the more you realize that it's actually a story of order versus chaos, and both of them are ugly in their own way. Soul Calibur and Soul Edge are both as evil as each other, as you kind of find out in 5, where it becomes just completely obsessed with the idea of creating order to the point where it even kills the person wielding it to create this order. And relishes in the idea of these two siblings having to fight. It's not a good sword, it's a spirit of order, and D&D can be the same. In my last campaign, I had to fight for 2 princes, and these 2 princes were both dickheads in their own way, and nobody liked them. We were actually the bigger dickheads, though, because we ended up just... we killed one of them and then robbed them both. And then ran away. But the other one got stabbed by the other prince. There was a purple prince and a blue prince. I called them Rain and Sub-Zero. So Rain stabbed Sub-Zero, and then one of our guys killed Rain. And then I stole all of Rain's stuff, and Sub-Zero fell over and he was like dying on the floor. So I stole all the Sub-Zero stuff as well whilst he was dying. He's bleeding out on the floor, and I just pick up his hand and like pull the rings off his fingers, and I'm just like pocketing them. But yeah, like I played a character who was a completely amoral prick who was just in it for profit, whatever means necessary, and he was willing to steal off dying people in order to get that. He asks a kid about his mum's jewelry rather than ask if he's all right or if his mum's all right, because he doesn't really care about any of that. But that's not a reflection of me. That's not actually what I do in situations. That's part of what's fun about D&D. You can explore character archetypes that you can make yourself. But yeah, like the morality of D&D, sorry, I nearly said DVD for some fucking reason. The morality of D&D is purely up to the player's character and the player. But bear in mind, what players do in the game is not necessarily what they think is morally right. They're just being in character. You know, it's like Charles Dickens wrote Ebenezer Scrooge, but it doesn't make him a greedy miser in real life. He could have been one, but likelihood is that he was just writing a character. And it's the same thing in D&D. It's just improvised, and sometimes you act the character, sometimes people don't. It depends what they're comfortable with. I personally put on accents because it makes it easier to tell if someone's like in character or not, if they talk in a different voice. But that's just me personally. Also, it's good practice for when I do stuff on here as well, if I practice voices. But yeah, like, these two have really picked the worst possible fucking thing, because it's like nothing in D&D is reflective of the players that play it, really. It's not quite like that.
In collision, well, that's not the outline we see in the Bible. We see a good that is all-powerful, that has taken dominion of the world, that created the world. Yes. And we see Satan, who's been defeated.
Absolutely. And that's...
If he's been defeated, why is he making Thundercats and He-Man to turn our children into little monsters? I don't get this idea of... It's a very common thing in Christian, like, fundamentalism. The idea that you you have the opponents on the ropes, but the opponents are still hounding you at everything. It doesn't make sense. Like, if this was a boxing match, the opponent would be kicking lumps off of you on the floor whilst you have them on the ropes, which actually is the most backwards, baffling thing I think I've ever seen. Oh, for fuck's sake. Like, most of these guys don't have a fucking clue what they're trying to say, because they want to be the victor and the victim at the same time. So they're like, oh yeah, we're totally winning this war, but we're also horribly losing.
But we want our children to know that Jesus is greater than Satan. He has won all the way. He's
Okay, so you got nothing to worry about. What was the point in 55 minutes of this shit?
He's the conqueror. Now, let me read you one
Wait, the conqueror, like Genghis Khan? That's kind of fucked up.
quick letter here. The cassette, this is a letter that came from a lady that has heard my
If it's from a lady, why is it in your handwriting? And why is it in crayon?
cassette on Dungeons & Dragons, and she just mentions how it changed the personality of her young boy. She says, the cassette from the Eagle's Nest especially helped me with my boy who was involved with D&D at a private high school which promoted D&D as part of their attractive strategic game club.
Oh, yeah, the college that I work at has a D&D club. Don't know if anyone goes.
She says, for a period of about 6 months, we lost Tonio, our son. He became rebellious,
Tonio, where are you?
disrespectful, lethargic. He made sneering faces at us and carried with him a very hostile spirit that could be felt wherever he went in the house.
Yeah, it's called being a teenager. Like, a lot of teenagers have, like, a spell of that. And a lot of teenagers don't even realize it. And then if you basically tell them that, they're like, oh, shit, I didn't quite realize I was that bad. Okay.
After much sorrow, Tonio finally let go of D&D only after his father forbid the game as his day's pastime. He couldn't make it his day's pastime. She said he had put aside all studies for this game.
You see, this is one thing that I don't get about this narrative. D&D requires other players. Now, it's notorious for a game that you never get to play because if one person of the 4 doesn't show up for the session, the campaign stops that week and you have to wait a week. It's kind of like a play. If one of the actors doesn't show up, you're kind of fucked. And sometimes you can go months before everyone's schedule lines up again. In fact, that's why high school is kind of perfect, because everyone's there, everyone's ready, everyone's, But in adult life, no, even on Discord, it can be hard to find that time slot. But, I don't understand how it's taken over his life when Tonio can probably only do this for a couple of hours a week. They're not going to be doing it past a certain point in the day, I guarantee, or before that point. Now, yeah, he could be slacking on his studies for other reasons, but I just find it weird that, this game that's a couple of hours a week at most is taking over his entire life. They don't really explain that part very well.
Now, I want to say that the reason the danger comes into this is that not only is it a game now, but the cartoons, which the children even identify more strongly with, are now coming up with D&D cartoons of the occult. Let's see another...
But the cartoon's kind of crap. Nobody who plays D&D likes the cartoon, because it's one of those cartoons that just dumbs down the source material to try and appeal to kids, but kids have no idea what D&D actually is.
Segment of a D&D cartoon where there's blatant occultism and witchcraft. Here's the cartoon.
Alfred? I've come from the children. They're going to rescue you.
How thoughtful of them. Only it is not I who need rescue.
What a jerk. Couldn't he just open the door like anyone else would?
Do not worry. You will soon be joined by your friends.
Oh my god, imagine getting captured by Copperhead on your first session. Jesus Christ.
It's been over an hour now. I think she's in trouble.
I think she was in trouble when she left.
In truth, there's a 97% chance that something unexpected has happened to your friend.
I kind of like that.
Oh, brother.
Overacted. But yeah, like, oh, it's 97% chance. Oh, wow, there's 1/6 of a chance. And oh my god, guys, no. You're bad at this.
Albino is right.
Dungeon Master!
In fact, you are all in great danger.
He looks a bit like my dungeon master.
No kidding. However, through defeat,
Stanley, is that you?
you shall find victory.
What's that supposed to mean?
I don't know. I'm high on bath salts. Leave me alone.
We're seeing here still all kinds of demonic creatures. Anything else you want to say about Dungeons and Dragons?
Well, the fact is that this toy and cartoon series is bringing the occult to younger and younger children in a very real way.
Well, let's go on to some other occultic figures. I see one on the screen here, which we call Blackstar. Can you tell us about him?
Blackstar
I believe he's called Darkstar, and he's not an occultic figure. Thank you very much.
is part of a blatantly occultic toy series on the market today, because with every figure such as Kadar, the invincible wizard that you're seeing here, comes its own glow-in-the-dark alien demon.
This glows in the dark?
Right. Now, the average child will own $72 worth of any toy series they get involved with, which means that they could own 4 to 12 of these glow-in-the-dark alien demons here.
Yo, that sounds pretty sick, and it's actually not badly made.
Can you imagine a child doesn't clean up his room at night or displays the toys on a shelf, and he wakes up looking at this thing glowing at him in the dark?
I can't believe that we could have toys that are absolutely, even the eyes look like they glow here.
Yeah. It's totally occultic.
You know, before we go on,
No, it's a fucking material that glows in the dark. I have Dalek stickers that do that, you fucking idiot.
to this one, let's look at a couple of occultic games.
Okay,
I have a
let's
few
do
here that we picked up at the toy store. We went out and
Oh, of course you two went back to the toy store to
we
loiter.
picked up a few. Now, this is the Infactiable Mystic Warriors of Change, and the faces change in these, don't they?
Right.
I'm guessing they're gonna fucking throw a fit because he's got Egyptian outfits
It's a
on.
man-to-beast combination.
Well, Egyptian attire, I should say.
I don't know much about this toy series. Of course, they come out so fast, it's pitiful.
Here's another one, another man-to-beast transformation where you can turn around the head inside, and these things
I mean, yeah, they've all kind of copied each other.
can be very occultic in their overtones.
Of course, transforming from a man to an animal is a very occultic and New Age concept.
Let's look at another one here, which we found in the store called the Sectors, Warriors of Symbion, and it says, now the battle is in your hands. Very interesting. Can they see that? Let me take this out of the box, and I'll show you that it actually does some tricks. Now, this is where a child can identify with this and actually take this out of the box
Whoa, that is a fucking sick toy.
and put it on his hand, no less. So let me see if I can put my hand in here. Oh, no. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Hand puppets? What the fuck is this devilry?
Get my fingers in the different glove parts here, and then
This guy's got a lot of experience shoving his hands up things' asses, believe me.
creature actually begins to open its mouth and move its legs. Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, that's not what happened last time you shoved your hand up a small animal's ass, is it, Gary?
And they can make it take on life.
It says here that it actually makes the wings move, so let me look at that.
Dude, that fucking toy is awesome.
Isn't that amazing?
And do you remember those
I love that look he gives.
verses in the Book of Revelation about the flying beast with the riders on them?
The flying beast with the riders on them. So
You
this
know,
is
the winged horses.
this could actually be taken from Revelation.
That's a fly, not a winged horse. It's just a very big bug.
Sure, let's find it.
I cannot believe it.
Oh yeah, the Book of Revelations where fucking Baltard flies in on a fly. I remember that. That was my favourite part of Sunday school.
Well, if this is the direction that the occultic toys are taking, where are we going?
It's to Satanism because fuck, Christian toys were never that cool.
Where do you think it's going to?
Well, Well, it's going to bring the occult into every home, and you know that the Lord said some very powerful things in Deuteronomy chapter 18.
Deuteronomy is full of batshit insanity. Like, even religious people don't fucking pay any mind to a lot of it, because a lot of it doesn't. A lot of it sounds like it was written by someone high on bath salts.
Verses 9 to 11 on the occult, and I'd like to read those.
Yeah, what does God say?
When thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, thou shalt not
Yeah, you got period blood all over his Bible.
learn to do after the abominations of those nations. There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through fire, or that useth divination, or an observer of the times, or an enchanter or a witch.
My Bible's cooler than theirs. Mine's a Bible Man Bible, and it's got pictures of Bible men on it, and quotes picked out by Bible Man.
Or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirit, or a wizard, or a necromancer. For all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord.
So, actually, another scripture says that if you bring an abomination or an accursed thing into your house, then you will be accursed like it is.
So, are you and Phil now cursed like each other? Because you two both look pretty cursed to me. Is that why your mustache is so fucked up?
Would you say these toys are cursed to God?
Oh, I would guarantee it. The toys and the cartoons. So
Dude, if you think they're cursed, you should see the bootlegs. I mean, Jesus Christ. You should see that demonic Mexican Michelangelo with the pentagram and the fucked up teeth.
the minute you turn your TV on, you've broken this scripture here.
So, a parent who allows
So we've already fucked ourselves. We might as well enjoy some He-Man and fucking Thundercats whilst playing D&D on our way to hell.
his child to watch this on television and also brings these toys into the home or buys them for the child is
Who the fuck's that in the background?
breaking a commandment of God and inviting curses upon the family. Is that correct?
Yeah, the Bible talks about not.
I like how they just feed each other narrative. Hey Phil, is it true that these toys represent all that's evil in the world? Yes, that's right, man. It's exactly what's going on. And would you say that these are occultic in nature? Yeah, I would. It's like, Jesus Christ, guys, just make out already.
Not taking counsel from ungodly counsel. But bringing a TV into your home is like taking counsel.
You've got a TV in your home, and those toys. You're cursed.
And if you
You are cursed men.
watch ungodly programs, you're taking counsel from ungodly counsel.
Oh, that's cool. So just don't watch any Big Brother or daytime TV, and you're fine.
Well, now I think a lot of this can even go back, if we might divert, back to some of the movies that have been coming out, like Star Wars.
Okay, so I am going to end it there because I've been doing this for a while now. 55 fucking minutes, Jesus. So yeah, I'm going to end it there for now. Got 46 minutes left, so I'll finish that some other time in the week. Toodles.
Welche Kiri heb